the soft glow of the early morning sun, I stood in the modest, well-worn kitchen of my suburban American home, my arms crossed defiantly. The tension in the air was palpable, a brewing storm of emotions about to erupt. I faced my mother-in-law, Susan, a stern woman with sharp features, who had always held a tight rein over the household.
Really, Amanda? How long do you plan on making this your castle? What about moving out? Stop dawdling and leave already.
Susan's voice, laced with irritation and a hint of disdain, echoed in the kitchen. Unaware of the dramatic turn of events about to unfold, she had been pressuring me to leave the house, a place I never felt belonged to me. In truth, I wasn't surprised. Susan's world revolved around her only son, Joshua, my husband. The bond between them was unmistakable, a mother's fierce love for her child. I myself had long grown weary of this stifling atmosphere, the constant tug-of-war of emotions. Being told to leave was almost a relief, a release from the chains of domestic strife. So, with a mixture of defiance and liberation swelling in my chest, I retorted, "I'll be out in 2 hours. Don't you worry." My words were a declaration of independence, a final stand against the oppressive environment I had endured. As I stepped into the moving truck, my belongings neatly packed, I caught a glimpse of Susan's face. A look of surprise, a soft
"Oh,"
escaped Susan's lips, but for me, it was of no consequence. This wasn't a story of being cast out. It was a tale of empowerment. I wasn't just leaving a house. I was leaving behind a life that no longer served me, including my husband Joshua and his parents. My name is Amanda, a 28-year-old working homemaker living the suburban American dream. My marriage with Joshua, now in its 4th blissful year, has been a journey of love and learning. We haven't been blessed with children yet, but it's not a concern. Doctors assure us of natural conception when the time is right. For now, we're content to wait, enjoying each day as it comes. Our story began back in college, where Joshua was the amiable senior everyone admired. I, the quiet girl in the corner, fell for him hard and fast. It was his kind-hearted nature that drew me in, and soon enough, Joshua noticed my silent adoration. He liked my reserved charm, and during a cozy dinner date, he confessed his feelings, marking the start of our beautiful relationship. We've always been the kind that respects each other's space, which meant our relationship sailed smoothly, free from the usual tempests of quarrels and misunderstandings. Seeing Joshua transition from a college student to a working professional was like watching a flower bloom in fast forward, his maturity and newfound adult demeanor only adding to his appeal. Inspired by him, I too hustled to carve my own path in the corporate world.
Wow, Amanda, you're amazing. You landed a job at a major company. With your salary, we're set for life.
Joshua's words, while celebratory, left a slight unease in me. It seemed like he was more focused on the financial aspect rather than my achievement. Just my earnings? I questioned, a hint of skepticism in my voice. His response caught me off guard.
You know, I've been thinking about being a stay-at-home dad. It's all the rage now, right? The whole modern father thing.
His casual tone couldn't mask the seriousness of his words. Well, sure, it's trendy, but raising kids is expensive. We'll need to save up, I replied, trying to steer the conversation toward practicality. His idea, though modern, left a myriad of question marks floating in my mind. Our relationship, like a smoothly flowing river, continued without major upheavals. Both our circle of friends and our families warmly acknowledged our bond, almost certain of a wedding in the horizon. Their supportive gaze felt like a comforting blanket wrapping around our growing love. When I turned 24, working my 2nd year in the professional world, Joshua surprised me with a proposal. It happened in a fancy restaurant with a breathtaking cityscape view. He presented it with such grandeur, a beautiful bouquet of flowers, and a stunning ring, all under the watchful eyes of an intrigued audience.
Will you marry me, Amanda? I promise to make you the happiest woman in the world,
he said, his voice resonating with love and commitment. The entire room seemed to pause, awaiting my response. How could I say anything but yes? Yes, I'd love to, I replied. The room erupted into applause, a symphony of happiness and celebration for our future together. Our marriage plans proceeded swiftly, though we decided to register our union first, delaying the ceremony due to our busy careers. I was never one for big weddings, but Joshua's parents, especially his mother, Susan, seemed particularly excited. However, it was during this period that I began to sense a change in Susan's attitude towards me. Initially, she appeared overjoyed, but soon her true feelings surfaced.
Why did Joshua have to marry someone so plain? I thought they'd break up, but to think they actually got married.
Susan lamented, her words like daggers to my heart. I was stunned, unable to fathom such cruelty from her. I had always known her to cherish Joshua immensely, but I never expected such harshness. And she was cunning, careful to mask her true feelings in Joshua's presence. In front of him, she played the doting mother-in-law, but when we were alone, her demeanor changed drastically. She would transform, her gaze turning cold and her words laced with sarcasm. It became evident that she was not the loving figure I had thought her to be. 3 months into our marriage, I had fully grasped the extent of Susan's duplicity. Just when I thought my situation couldn't get any worse, fate threw an unbelievable curveball my way. One day, as I returned home, Joshua greeted me with a solemn expression, his words heavy with concern.
There's something I need to talk to you about. My mom called today, and it seems her chronic back pain has worsened. She's struggling with daily chores and is in a lot of pain. She's asking if we could consider moving in with her.
I was dumbfounded, barely able to process his words. The thought of living with Susan, who had been nothing but unkind to me, was unthinkable. I had never seen any indication of her suffering from back pain. She seemed more vibrant and capable than her years suggested. In fact, I had been planning to discuss with Joshua the possibility of us moving farther away from his parents' house, but now that option seemed off the table. But I have my job too, and moving in together could be really challenging. I responded hesitantly, my mind racing with the implications of such a decision. My workplace is already demanding enough. Joshua, however, was resolute.
I can't just leave my mom like this. You know how my dad is. He's no help around the house. Plus, think about the money we could save on rent by living together.
Despite my staunch opposition, Joshua eventually persuaded me, and I found myself reluctantly agreeing to the living arrangement. It felt like falling right into Susan's trap. In no time, Joshua, more enthusiastic than ever, began packing for the move. The speed at which everything was decided and organized by Joshua was startling. He seemed almost too eager, as if this had been a long-awaited opportunity. Meanwhile, I was left grappling with a mixture of emotions, anxiety, frustration, and a sense of impending doom.
Well, I never thought I'd be living back at my parents' house at this age, but hey, think of the savings on rent. That means more spending money for me, right? Plus, we can build up our savings. It's a win-win situation.
Joshua remarked with a chuckle, seemingly oblivious to the complexities of our impending living situation. I'm not so sure about that, I replied, my voice tinged with doubt and apprehension. The idea of saving on rent and building our savings was enticing, but it felt frivolous when weighed against the reality of living with his parents, especially his mother, Susan. One thing I'd come to realize since moving in was Joshua's unchanged and reckless spending habits from his college days. He had a flair for fashion and a need to keep up with the latest trends, which often led to impulsive purchases. His financial prudence seemed to have deteriorated over the years, only adding to the stress of our new living arrangement. As expected, the bulk of the domestic challenges fell squarely on my shoulders, while Joshua enjoyed his carefree days. I had yet to see any sign of Susan's alleged debilitating back pain. She spent hours gossiping with neighbors and frequently went out for lunches, dressed to the nines. And whenever she had the chance, she never missed an opportunity to throw a snide remark my way.
It's great to live with Joshua again, but there's one nuisance in the house. If I think of you as a maid, it's bearable, but just seeing you irks me,
Susan would say, her words dripping with contempt. All I could do was sigh in response to her petty comments. I'm sure she took my silence as insolence, but I was tired of letting her words go unchallenged. I had even brought up my concerns to Joshua. Listen, Joshua, your mom is definitely not in pain. She was out with friends today, and I saw her moving up and down the stairs effortlessly. Why are we even living together? Your dad just follows whatever she says. I vented my frustrations to him, but Joshua never took my concerns seriously.
Seriously, Amanda, when did you become so bitter and sarcastic? We're living here thanks to my parents, and you think you can just say whatever you want? You married into this family, so helping out with my parents should be a given.
Joshua retorted dismissively whenever I tried to express my concerns. He never took my side. Instead, if I dared to voice an opinion, Joshua would immediately jump to his mother's defense.
Stop harassing my mom. I won't forgive you if you mistreat her.
He would warn me. Our relationship deteriorated with each passing day, the once light-hearted and loving conversations now a thing of the past. In this strained atmosphere, the thought of starting a family seemed more distant than ever. Susan, well aware of the growing rift between Joshua and me, didn't hesitate to add fuel to the fire.
When will I get to see my grandchildren? All my friends have grandkids and talk about them all the time. It's just me who can't join in their conversations.
She would lament, as if blaming me for our childless state. She didn't stop there. She would insinuate that my work was getting in the way of starting a family, or that I wasn't feminine enough for Joshua to see me as a woman. Her words were so absurd that I often found myself speechless. But I couldn't just let her comments slide. I guess having kids might be tough since Joshua and I argue all the time now. I'd reply, not wanting to show any weakness to her. I was determined not to let Susan win. Despite my busy work life, I found myself burdened with all the household chores at my in-laws' house, leaving me exhausted every day. To avoid further conflicts, I started keeping conversations with Joshua to the bare minimum, resorting to neutral, non-confrontational exchanges. Our relationship as a couple had become dysfunctional, a mere shadow of what it once was. Adding to this, Joshua's return home started to stretch past midnight almost every day, often citing overtime or social gatherings as reasons. Recently, you've been coming home really late. Is there a new project at work? I ventured to ask one evening, only to be met with his fiery anger.
Are you questioning me, the man of the house, who works hard for this family? What's wrong with being busy at work?
He retorted, his face turning red with indignation. Susan invariably intervened in these exchanges, chastising me for even hinting a distrust towards Joshua.
Why would you say such things, Amanda? It's because of this attitude that Joshua is drifting away from you. Don't forget that you're his wife and our daughter-in-law.
She would lecture at length, turning the situation into a habitual pattern. But my questions to Joshua weren't without reason. 2 weeks ago, an unsettling truth came to light. After a late night at work, I stopped by a ramen shop, craving something hearty. As I hurriedly finished my meal, thinking of the chores awaiting me at home, I saw Joshua walking arm in arm with a much younger woman. I was so stunned that I missed the opportunity to capture any evidence, leaving me to stew in uncertainty and discomfort since then. I had sensed something was off, but seeing it with my own eyes was a different matter. I've since resigned myself to this reality, accepting it as an inevitable part of our strained relationship. Despite my inner turmoil, Susan seemed eager for me to leave the house, frequently bringing up divorce talks with Joshua.
Oh, how tiresome and annoying. When will you finally leave? I can't stand having you around.
She often complained. Initially, she was discreet in her disdain for me, but now she openly expressed her contempt. Of course, I never planned to stay in this situation forever. I was just waiting for the right evidence to make my move. Then, a week later on a weekend, I received the news I had been waiting for. The detective agency had gathered conclusive evidence of Joshua's infidelity. This was the moment I had been anticipating. Oblivious to what was about to unfold, Susan continued to urge me to leave the house.
Really? When will you pack up and leave? Why are you dragging your feet? Get out already.
Susan railed against me, unaware of the imminent change. In her eyes, Joshua, her only son, could do no wrong. Honestly, I was relieved at the prospect of leaving this life behind. So, I informed her of my decision. I'll be out in 2 hours, don't worry.
Oh, finally decided to leave, have you? I couldn't be happier. I must tell Joshua right away.
Susan exclaimed, almost gleefully. Joshua, who had come home past 1 in the morning and was off today, was sound asleep in the bedroom. True to my word, I was ready to leave. Energetically, Susan woke Joshua up to share the news, her excitement palpable.
Can't you see, Joshua? Amanda's finally leaving our house.
She exclaimed gleefully.
What? Leaving the house? Where are you going? I haven't heard anything about this. What's going on?
Joshua asked, rubbing his sleepy eyes, visibly surprised. Well, I've decided to divorce you, Joshua. You know why, don't you? I said with a sly smile. Joshua's face paled as he slowly realized the gravity of the situation. Let's handle the details through our lawyers from now on. I don't ever want to see you or your malicious mother again, I declared. Enraged, Susan lashed out.
What an impertinent daughter-in-law. You hardly do any housework and can't even bear a child. Are you even worthy of being called a woman?
I was indifferent to her harsh words. If anything, I was relieved I hadn't brought a child into such a toxic environment. And at 28, I knew life offered me plenty of opportunities for a fresh start. Then came the day of my departure, marked by the arrival of the moving truck. Once the movers had transferred all my belongings, I climbed into the truck and turned to Joshua and Susan, ready to have the last word. To the low-income cheater, I'll be claiming plenty of alimony, so don't even think of running away, I said with a final wave. Goodbye now. Susan could only muster a puzzled, but her reaction no longer mattered to me. I wasn't the one being kicked out. I was the one leaving a foolish husband and a spiteful mother-in-law behind. A few days later, an agitated Susan called me. It was obvious Joshua was there with her.
Amanda, what is this about? We received a letter from your lawyer talking about alimony. What's this all about?
It's exactly what it sounds like, I replied coolly. It seems your son has been cheating with a junior colleague from his company since before our marriage. So, yes, I'm seeking a divorce and alimony. Oh, and the other woman, she's also married with children. I wonder how that's going for her. It turned out Joshua had been involved with his colleague for years. I had sent plenty of photographic evidence of their hotel rendezvous and intimate moments at work, leaving Susan utterly confused and overwhelmed. It's hard for a mother to accept that her son has been unfaithfully involved in an affair for years, especially while married. But he managed to cheat quite well, right? Even though he only received a salary of 120,000 yen per month. Well, I guess she was also just playing around completely, huh? I think not just from me, but you also received contact from her husband. I made sure to report everything properly, you know? Her voice was completely trembling, and she seemed at a loss for words, just standing there in stunned silence, like she didn't know what to say.
Isn't there anything that can be done? Can't you at least withdraw the compensation claim?
Yeah, that's right. Hey, Amanda, can't we just forget about the alimony? I'll do anything, even if it means you coming back to this house. Please, Amanda.
Hearing his words, I realized how much love had cooled. Why should I, the wronged party, forego the alimony? It's him who should be making amends. Joshua, I always thought you were a bit dense, but I never knew you were this terrible, I said, half amused, half disgusted. I won't be withdrawing the alimony claim. This is the consequence of your actions. Despite his pleas and various conditions, I ignored them all. I had no more time to waste on a relationship that was built on lies and betrayal. I was ready to move on and start anew.
Let's keep it civil, for the sake of our past as a married couple,
he suggested, desperation in his voice. I couldn't help but laugh. Civil, Joshua, I've already filed a report with your company. If you fail to pay the alimony, I'll have your wages garnished, I declared confidently. His face fell. He had always been more concerned with appearances than facing his wrongdoings. He blurted out in panic.
You can't do that. It's defamation of character. I'll sue you.
His threat was almost laughable. Defamation? If anyone's character has been defamed, it's mine. But don't worry, I'll take appropriate action if you don't comply with the court's orders. Bye now. Joshua's pleas turned to desperate apologies, but I had already hung up. There was no chance I would reverse the alimony claim, nor would I ever consider returning to that house of deceit. In the end, I received a total of 4.5 million yen in alimony from Joshua and his mistress. Surprisingly, Joshua managed to pay off the entire settlement at once, a fact that bewildered me. However, I later discovered that his father, upon learning of the entire fiasco, was furiously livid.
What a despicable act you both have committed.
He roared so loudly that even the neighbors could hear. It turned out Joshua's father had paid the alimony on his behalf and was now strictly managing Joshua's monthly earnings to repay the debt. Meanwhile, the mistress's husband also demanded alimony, plunging Joshua into a foreseeable future of financial woes. As for Susan, the mother-in-law, her days of mistreating her daughter-in-law had become the talk of the neighborhood. Isolated and looked upon with disdain, she faced her own set of social repercussions. Though I never revealed her actions to anyone, it seems her loud, spiteful remarks to me were overheard by others. Karma at its finest is all I could think. My short-lived marriage was fraught with challenges, but it's over now. As I embark on the next chapter of my life, I'm determined to choose better and live joyfully, honing my instincts and trusting the right people.